Alright, this is a very, very overwhelming picture, and that is my apologies, but I will break down each section in this one picture. But here we have, the generic worthy options, the class worthy options, and just the champions that are maybe worthy of a class gem, but just not there yet. Then we have the fun investments, and we have the just okay signature abilities, right? And by the way, this guide is for players that might not have too many gems at their disposal. So even though a champion might be generic worthy to you because you have a ton of those gems, some other players don't have that many generic gems, so I have to make sure that they're making the best investment possible, right? So that's why I was a bit strict on my generic worthy rules. And besides that, let's just get into it and let's break down each section of this big picture. So first off, a quick guide on the little icons there. The arrow up means that you want high sig, or you need high sig for this champion. And the little shield means that there is more defensive value if this champion is awakened. And by the way, I value defense pretty well because of Battlegrounds, but you'll see later how I have my own section for those characters, right? Alright, first things first, we have the generic worthy characters. These characters are so good to where they're not just worth a skill gem, they are worth a whole generic gem. So first things first, we have Nick Fury here, and Nick Fury has one of the best signature abilities in the entire game. With his life model decoy, it is just so strong. He gets a major DPS increase, he gets a lot of utility added as well because you can just reliably stack on those tactical charges. And the best part is he becomes a monstrous defender as well. So he is just a great both quester and defender for you. So he will just have a ton of value for your account. And in my opinion, I believe he is the most generic worthy character in the skill class. So yeah, if you have one of those, I think Nick Fury deserves it pretty much the most, right? And next up we have Kingpin here, and Kingpin is just a monstrous attacker. And when he's awakened, he just gets a massive benefit as well. His rage stacks, he gets them in the start of the fight, which just does a ton for him damage-wise and just utility-wise as well. And whenever Overpowered expires, he gets more rage stacks too, which is really strong as well. I put a 65 there because Sig 65 is the sweet spot for Kingpin. So if you're investing in the Kingpin, and let's say you're a newer player, right? If you don't have too many stones to invest in, then you can just stop at 65 because 66 through 200 isn't the most value out there for your 6 stones in my opinion. But yeah, overall, very good character, very solid quester, even good in Battlegrounds defense too, just a very strong all-around champion. Next up is Valkyrie, and Valkyrie is just proving herself even more day by day. And I feel that makes her just generic worthy because her utility when awakened is just so strong. Her stun immunity pretty much, and also her access to unstoppable counter as well. It is just a very good time. She does want high sig though, so if you don't have too many signature stones, maybe look into investing into Nick Fury or Kingpin before her. But once she is awakened, she just has so much utility added to her. It is just so crazy. So I feel it is generic worthy 100%. And next up we have Kate Bishop, and this one I was very torn on. I was is she top of the class worthy or is she generic worthy? But with how powerful this character is, I think she is just generic worthy, to be honest, because this character will just carry you so much in this game. She has so much damage output, her utility is insane as well, and adding on to that with her increased damage output because of the signature ability is just a really good investment, I feel because this character can be a carry. She can carry you through so much content. So I feel it is worth investing everything you have into her because she is just a very solid champion, and that signature ability does a lot for her too. It gives her increased Aladdin passives, it gives her some extra trick arrow potency as well. It's some very solid benefits, right? But I would not give her generic over the previous 3, and maybe not even over the next character, which is Atuma. Speaking of, a big note here for Atuma, if you don't need a defender, he is not generic worthy. I would say he's still class worthy, but if you need a defender, this guy is generic worthy because he has one of the strongest defensive potentials in the game. So if you need a defender, this guy is your best investment. He will just do so much for you. Everyone is scared of this guy. This guy is a menace on defense. Even in the higher tiers, he just does so much for your account if you give him a generic gem. And questing wise, he gets a massive benefit from being awakened as well. So I feel overall this is a very good investment. and I believe it's just truly generic worthy, to be honest. And this is the generic worthy section of this one big picture. Now let's go into the class worthy characters. The characters I feel like are really good and just not really generic worthy, but still very, very strong champions, right? Now, a disclaimer, if you have a lot of gems, like you're a very endgame player and you have like just a ton of generics or something, these characters might be generic worthy for you, especially the likes of Crossbones, Stealth Spidey, even Shang-Chi, I would say. But if you're progressing, I would just stick to a class gem for these characters. So first up, Crossbones, and Crossbones is just insane. His damage output is just unreal. Against hero champions, he is just crazy. He does a lot for your account on the attack spectrum, and having him awaken lets him purify debuffs as well. So it just becomes a very like powerful character, both damage and utility wise at that point, right? Next up, we have Stealth Spidey here, and Stealth Spidey just gets a massive damage bonus from his signature ability, and I feel like this character is so good to where just every investment counts for him. And while he isn't like, for everyone, if you like this champion, then he is more than worthy investing into because the damage bonus from the signature ability is just really, really strong. And next up, we have Baron Zemo here, and Baron Zemo I feel like is the least worthy of a class gem in this like section, but still is kind of worthy because his signature ability gives him some defensive value as well, so that is something at least. But it also does give some nice damage like increase, but not as good as Stealth Spidey's, and also gives some utility as well with like the crypto block, right? So overall, pretty decent. Baron Zemo is just an interesting character. I'm not too fussed about him though, so I wouldn't say that like you prioritize him over these other 6 characters, but still a very good champion, right? Now we have Mole Man here, and Mole Man is a very, very interesting investment. He is an insane champion, right? But when he is awakened, and maybe high sig even, he becomes a monstrous quester because the lower your health goes, the more damage you do. And like, let's say you are a progressing player, right? If you take damage during quest, which is fine, it happens to all of us, he takes advantage of it, and he just goes haywire when he's at low health. It is just a very, very crazy time. So if you are like still progressing and you just want this god tier quester, Mole Man is 100% worth a class gem at least, right? So yeah, very good champion there. Next up, we have Shang-Chi, and I feel like Shang-Chi is a great investment still. At Sig 1, he crits through block, which is perfect. And the higher the Sig, the more extra damage you get. Just like straight up extra damage on your crits. It is a very nice time. And like for Battlegrounds or something where like, time is still very valuable, I think it is a very good investment because it just helps you get fights done faster, right? And now we have Moondragon. Moondragon is very, very new, so maybe she goes down, maybe she goes up even as time progresses, but Moondragon is a very strong character. And her awakening is very, very good. It gives her, for starters, unblockable specials during Sonic Transcendence, which is just a very nice time. But the big thing here is it gives her increased crit rating on her heavy attacks when she's below bar power. So this does a lot for her damage-wise, and it just makes her an even more monstrous DPS because she is already a very good DPS, but with the signature ability, she becomes even crazier, to be honest. So yeah, very good character, and I think she's worth the class gem, to be honest. And last but not least is Falcon, and Falcon gets a big benefit from his dupe. It gives him extra lock-on duration, which is already a big plus, and the higher the Sig, the more crit rate you get during lock-on. And Falcon's biggest issue is his damage output, right? But with this ability, you get increased crit rating, which is just a massive help for him because he already has some decent numbers, right? But when you crit more, it just leads to a lot of extra damage output. So it just does a lot for this champion overall because damage output is like his biggest struggle, I feel like. So a very good ability, a very strong champion, and it's just 100% worth it in my opinion. Now we have the defense powerhouses. These guys are class worthy if you need a defender, and if you don't, then maybe just pass on these characters. And a big note here, both of these champions are 7 stars, and I forgot to mention so is Falcon, so keep that in mind. But Killmonger here gains a reverb, right? And this ability is just so annoying. It gives you just a lot of defensive value for sure, because whenever you hit the guy, he just does damage back to you. It is not a fun time, and he will be a very nice help in Battlegrounds defense and just align toward defense too, to be honest. But I feel like the big one here is Korg. Korg, when he's awakened, is just beyond terrible to fight. His Thorns damage is very annoying at like first, right? But then he has his Purify as well, which just makes him so annoying. But keep in mind, both these characters want high sig, so if you need a defender, these guys are the play for sure. Actually, no, Atuma is the play, but if you need another defender, then it is these guys for sure. But keep in mind, they want high sig, and they don't offer too much on the attack spectrum, right? So yeah, overall, very nice defenders and worth it if you need a defender, right? Next up is these guys here, and these guys are all great champions, but I feel like there are better options for a class gem. However, if you have like a lot of generics or class gems, these guys are 1000% worth it in my opinion. So first up is Aegon, and Aegon I was considering putting into the class gem worthy tier, but it's just the fact that we haven't seen much use for him in like a long time. So as it stands right now, maybe not the most worthy character for a gem, but you know, maybe they release Abyss 2 or something, or just a different piece of Everest content, then he'll go up, then he'll be worth a class gem for sure, maybe even a generic gem. And now next up is Blade here, and Blade is fantastic in my opinion. I feel like he still does have some value with his danger sense, and when he's awakened, he just gets a nice regen as well. So if you need a quester, this guy is probably the way to go for a class gem, but in my opinion, I feel like he isn't the best carry out there because besides the danger sense fights, he just really doesn't offer too much in other fights as well. So yeah, Blade, great champion, kind of fallen off a bit, but still has his uses for sure. And next up is Black Panther here, and I thought maybe he's worthy of the class gem just straight up, but I don't know, because this guy isn't everyone's cup of tea for sure. He does have a lot of utility when he's awakened with his debuff shrug and his defensibility accuracy reduction, but however, he isn't everyone's cup of tea, and besides those two things, he really just is a bleed character and not much else. And he isn't really the best at anything too, right? So I feel like there are just better investments, but if you like the character, he will do a lot for you, don't get me wrong, because he has a great kit. But keep in mind he wants high sig because that gives him the stronger purify and just the better ability accuracy reduction. But still a phenomenal champion. I would suggest investing into him if you like the character, but if you don't, like if you're iffy on him, then there's just better options for sure. And next up is Thor Ragnarok here, and Thor Ragnarok is a very interesting character. Fallen off for sure, 100%. Still has his uses, so like that's why he's in this section here, because while he isn't the most utilized character, he still does have some use, and when he's awakened, he just hits very dang hard as well. So if you like the champion, definitely worth it. If not, there's just better investments, but he's still a very fun time, and he is still pretty utility packed with that stun lock, to be fair. So yeah, overall, an interesting character, and I would say he is not really worth a class gem, but maybe he is in some scenarios. And last but not least, we have Hawkeye here, and Hawkeye first off is a 7-star, so keep that in mind. But additionally, this guy is not everyone's cup of tea, and I mean that. Like, I really mean that. The perfect release mechanic is not everyone's cup of tea, but if you do like it, then he is more than worthy of a class gem in my opinion, because he just does a lot. He has access to slow, to power drain, some of the best bleed damage out there once he gets going for sure. Like, he can do a lot for you, and like with full synergies as well, he becomes an insane quester. So if you like his gameplay, then I think he is 100% worthy of a class gem. Now let's go a bit faster here because I don't want to keep y'all for too long, but we have the fun investment section, and this part is, they are not class worthy in my opinion, but they are still a very fun time. And if you have like spare gems, then yeah, I would give it to them because they are just very fun champions. We have like Night Thrasher here with his signature ability, very good damage output increase, but just not the most utilized character for sure. Then we have Gwenpool and her cheat death mechanic, which is pretty dang sweet. We have Daredevil and his like Namor-esque signature ability, which just isn't as good as Namor's, but it's still decent. We have Black Widow with her ability accuracy reduction, which is still pretty dang good. It's just the fact that her damage output is just not that great, which makes her in this category, right? Then we have Squirrel Girl and her investment as well, which is honestly pretty dang sweet. Not the best champ out there, but still very, very fun. Then we have Kraven here, who gets a big damage bump, but it's just, you know, a bit stressful to play. So if you like the character, then why not? But besides that, just not worth it at all, to be honest. Then we have Ronan here, who has a very nice evade mechanic when he's awakened, and it's very, very fun at times, but not really worthy of a class gem in my opinion. Then we have Karnak here, who gets a big benefit, to be honest, because it lets him ramp up faster. But then we have Karnak here, who gets a big benefit because it ramps him up faster, but to be honest, Karnak isn't the most utilized character out there, so maybe not the best investment, but if you like him, then by all means, take him up, gem him. he's a pretty fun time. And last but not least, we have Taskmaster here, who is the pure definition of a fun time. Might not be the best champion out there, but when he's awakened in high sig, he is just so fun to play. And if you like the character, then by all means, take him up, give him like a lot of sigs because he does really want that. But yeah, once you like have him fully invested, he is just a very sweet character. But however, not as good as the other champions in this video, so that's why he is at this level, not higher up, right? And now we have the champions that are very good, but just have pretty poor signature abilities in my opinion. The best one here is Black Cat, like signature ability wise, and she might be like class worthy in some eyes, but it just is a nice safety net and like maybe some defensive value as well. But besides that, just really isn't worth it to like, you know, awaken her. Black Widow Deadly Origin also just gets a very minor benefit as well with the sabotages. Jabari Panther gets a nice duration on the hunt, but besides that and like the counterpunch charges, it really isn't worth like investing a class gem into unless you have like a ton of spare ones. Then we have champions like, you know, Hitmonkey, who really doesn't have a good ability at all. I would just pass on this for sure. Then we have like Mantis here, who is a 7-star character. Just doesn't really benefit too much from her signature ability because it's just a bit impractical in my opinion. Then we have like Elsa Bloodstone here, who's also a 7-star character. Has a nice ability for sure, but it just isn't worth a class gem in my opinion. And then we have like Mcoc right here, who is a very strong champion, but most of his value is not from the signature ability, so you can just pass on this and give it to someone who like needs it more, right? But yeah, phenomenal characters, but signature abilities that just can be passed on 100%. And these guys are just not worth it at all. Like, no. Just their signature abilities are just terrible, or they are just terrible in general. I just would not awaken these guys whatsoever. Just use it on someone else. And yeah, the list is now complete. So hopefully this helps you out. Hopefully you can just like, you know, use this pretty well and just utilize your gems to the fullest. And yeah, that's about it for me.